All right, hi everyone, and welcome back to week 4 of our podcasts. Thank you very much to everyone who entered last week and who's registered for the opening evening on Tuesday. We really look forward to speaking to you then. This week is all about managing the unknown. So having to think about obviously what you maybe is going to do in the future and also the unknown around everything that's happening at the moment. So first of all, Jess, do you just want to talk about sort of your first experience of the unknown and how you kind of managed it?
Yeah, sure. So I think when we're thinking about the unknown, it can be so many different things to so many people. So it's obviously quite kind of broad topic. But I think kind of a really big unknown for me was moving on in terms of education after year 11, because I think you become quite comfortable in your school environment, and I definitely did, and I had really good friends, and the idea of moving to kind of a sixth form college I went to, like a standalone one, was terrifying in that I just had no concept of what it was going to be like, really. So although I'd kind of attended open days and things like that, you still didn't really know what it was going to feel like to actually be a student there. So I think that was probably kind of a big one for me. I think as well, the actual jump in terms of kind of revision and things like that. So with A level, I'd only done kind of obviously GCSE, and I thought, well, all of my revision techniques that I use for GCSE will be absolutely fine. I'll sail through A levels, it'll be amazing. And then I quickly realised that that probably wasn't the case, and I'd have to step up my game really in terms of kind of revision and studying and things like that. So obviously, when you go to and study A levels, it's a lot more about independent study, and I think that was kind of something that was in the unknown for me. Obviously, I've revised for GCSEs and stuff, but nothing like I had to do for A level. So I think that was a big one, and something that I maybe wish that I'd known before. Something I think I would say to kind of put a positive spin on it, because I know I've just said that A levels are really scary and really hard. But I think this particular year group of year 11s, they're doing so much more independent learning than probably any group of year 11s before. And obviously that's something I didn't experience at GCSE, but I think kind of maybe a bit of a tip, but like kind of use this time. You are kind of going to be managing your own time, managing your own work, and that experience is amazing, and that will be so applicable to kind of going on to study at A level. So that was probably my biggest one, was kind of workload and things like that. How was your experience of kind of that jump?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Obviously, mine was a little bit different. I think obviously I'd considered college, but then ended up staying at my school sixth form. So for me, I don't think I was that worried about going to sixth form. It was just like going back after another summer.
Yeah.
But I felt the same. Once you actually got back and you started sixth form, you realise it was such a different experience. Like even just managing your free lessons, like you'd never had free lessons before. So like,
That's
what
so
do you
true.
do? And you end up just sort of sitting and chatting and not really being that productive. But then you soon realise that actually you need to be doing work in that time, don't you? Because the workload's sort of more.
Yeah.
I think for me, obviously, I took biology as one of my subjects, so I had the same as you. I think my first mock in like year 12, I thought, oh, I've done really well, like just the same as GCSE, everything's fine. Got the results back and I got like an E or something. I remember being like, oh my God, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And then, but everyone was the same, like even the very like smartest kids in the class all got like D's and E's. But it's just such a big jump in, isn't it? And you don't even sort of realize. But it was the same in terms of like the BTEC courses and things I was doing as well. So even with those, it was mainly coursework rather than exams. But it was a case of you had so much to do that you needed to do it in your own time, like after school and things. But also in the lesson, like we would have coursework lessons where you would just go straight to the computer room, you just get on with your coursework. It's not really a lesson, it's just time to do your work. But again, it's having that discipline to actually sit at your computer and do your coursework and not just be chatting to your friends next to you, because you're in sixth form. So it's not like your teachers are looking over you and sort of telling you like, you know, you should be doing this, you should be on to that module now, or this module. It is all about like managing your time, isn't it? So
definitely. And I think like the social aspect of it as well. I know for me it was a huge thing. Obviously, I imagine it would have been slightly different for you, but I was like, will I still have the same friends? Like, what am I going to do? And I must admit, like, my group of friends grew quite a lot when I got to A level, which was really great. But that again was another like big unknown. I was like, will I still be friends with these people? And the sixth form that I studied at was like half an hour away on the bus from my house. So I had to get the bus every morning, which again, like completely new to me. And I remember thinking on like that first day, I was like, am I at the right bus stop? Like, what is going to happen? And it's so funny because I look back and it seems so like novel now and ridiculous, but it's not. It's something I've not done before. Like, I hadn't like getting myself kind of independently from home to a new sixth form that I'd only visited kind of with my parents before. I think that was kind of scary. But then when we got into the year, the bus rides were the best bit. Like it was they were great by the end of it. And obviously everyone started driving and had cars, which was also great.
We had like a similar sort of thing actually, because our sixth form was joint with like another 2 schools, so some of your lessons would be at a different sixth form, and then they would put on like a bus between each sixth form. But if like sometimes I'd be like the only one of my friends going to a different school, and then there would be other students on from one of the other 2 schools, and the bus just kept looping around, so it would go like one, the other, pick up and drop off people all the way. But I remember that being like a big thing, being like, oh God, no one else is getting on the bus. Like, what if I'm the only one from this school? Like, such a big thing to go like 15 minutes down the road.
I know.
But it is like, it's things that you've just not done before, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think for me, obviously when it was staying at sixth form, didn't feel that sort of daunting. But I know when I was it must have been the start of sixth form, that's when I got my first like job. So I got like part-time job to go along sixth form. And I think for me, that was like the first time that I'd felt a bit like, oh, what's it going to be like? What am I going into? I remember being desperate for a job because I really wanted just like a bit of money for like the weekends and stuff. So I was like absolutely desperate to get this job. And then I remember getting it and being like, oh my God, this actually means like going to work. Like, what is that? But I remember that being the same sort of thing, like actually getting yourself there, like putting your uniform on in the morning, and then it's like, what do I do? Will I tell people at one side of the shop who I am? Will I go straight around the back? Like, what will the training be like? Will people be my age? Will they be older? And I remember just having so many like worries on the way. My first job was actually at Subway, and when I got there, everyone was like probably my age. Most of them were at uni. I was in sixth form, and it was like the absolute time of my life. Like, so I remember the worry of starting that job and then not wanting to leave. Like, I was going to uni and have like opportunities to get like a very different job in terms of a career that I actually want to do, but not wanting to leave Subway because I was like absolutely loving it. So it is funny, isn't it, when you kind of first get to those hurdles, but then it turns out to be like absolutely fine.
I think that was kind of similar for me with like my first job as well. I think I got my first job when I was probably 16, and I remember I'm from a really, really small town, but the town has a theme park and a zoo, and like I remember they were both recruiting for like summer temp jobs at the same time. And I remember applying for both of them and being like, don't care which one I get. And then I remember I got both, and I was like, this is the biggest decision of my life. I was like, am I gonna like work with the roller coasters, or am I going to work with the giraffes? When in reality it was like a catering position at both, so I would have been serving hot dogs at like either place. But I like it, I like how it sounds when I'm like, I used to work at a zoo, because it sounds like I was a zookeeper. But yeah, so I ended up choosing the zoo. But again, it was like I had to get myself there, and I remember like I used to bike all the way there, and some shifts it was absolutely chucking it down. There were nobody was visiting the park, so I just stand all day drinking slush puppies, and it was like
what a dream.
Just what a job. But yeah, so I think again I had all those questions. I think one of my big questions was about pay, and I was like, how does that work? Like, it was my first time having a bank account which money was paid into, because my jobs, I'd like had a voluntary job before, so had no experience of kind of getting paid for that. So I was like, how does this all work? Like, and having an actual payday, it was, yeah. So I think that was like a big unknown, because I was like, I'm going in and doing this job, but how do I actually get the benefits of that?
No, I totally agree, because I remember when like the first Friday I went in and someone was like, oh, your pay slip's here, and I'm like,
what is a pay slip? What do
you yeah, opening it, like, what does this even mean?
Yeah.
No, it is funny, isn't it, when it's like your first one, you sort of like learning the ropes. But yeah, I think from that then, I think we both have sort of our top tips, don't we, in terms of how to cope with them. Probably both very different. But do you want to just sort of go through maybe your top tips with how you coped when you were sort of moving from year 11 into your sort of standalone sixth form, and all the kind of concerns that came with that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think my kind of big top tip, so obviously, as I mentioned, the jump between kind of GCSE and A level was definitely bigger than I expected it to be. And I think that is fine. And I think that happens with everyone. And there's only kind of so prepared that you can be. But I think getting into the swing of independent learning and independent study before you kind of go to sixth form would probably be my top tip. So as I mentioned, obviously this group of year 11s, it's kind of perfect opportunity really, because you're just working from home and managing your workload kind of yourselves at the moment. So I think that would probably be my tip. I would also say, if you can do some kind of extra kind of research maybe around the subjects that you're going to be applying for. So at A level, I did English language, English literature and psychology. And obviously I've never experienced psychology before, just thought it sounded cool, to be honest. And it was, and I absolutely loved it. It was probably my favourite A level. But like, had I have been proactive enough before starting that course to have actually explored the course material a little bit, I think that would have been really beneficial. So what I would say is, once you've had a think about what it is in particular that you want to do, is there any extra reading that you could do around it, or any podcasts you could listen to? I think podcasts are a great way to get kind of more information. There'll be so many about psychology, for example, and I just think they kind of are really easy to kind of put on, crack on with something else, but you can also be kind of getting the gist of the subject. So I think those would probably be my best tips. And also, just don't worry. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, and I know it's so much easier said than done. But I think hopefully, obviously, listening to us kind of explain our past experiences, you'll know that it's normal to think, well, am I going to keep my friends? Like, what will the workload be like? Blah, blah, blah. Like, everyone thinks that. So don't worry about worrying, I suppose. Like, it's normal to think, what on earth is going to happen when I leave year 11? Like, that's fine. So they're probably my kind of tips.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's like you say, it's easier said than done, isn't it, not to worry? But I always sort of think you could either sit and worry about it all the way up to it actually happening, but it won't make a difference to what actually happens at the time. Do you know what I mean? So whether you spend months worrying about it, you know, whatever happens is going to happen either way. So there's no point in sitting sort of stewing over it, because what will be will be. I think for mine, sort of top tips, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think definitely make the most of this independent sort of learning at home. If you can do extra things like podcasts, that sort of thing, use your free lessons that you've got at the minute, because I know not everyone's doing like PE at home. So if you've got frees on your timetable, then maybe use that as an opportunity to start and listen to podcasts or do a little bit of research about subjects you might be studying after year 11, and that'll kind of get you in the swing of managing your free time as well before you even get to sixth form or college. But I think everyone's doing an amazing job at that already anyway. I know even like my niece who's in year 9, sorry, I find it crazy. Sometimes I'll go downstairs just doing a bit of work, and she's like, oh, I haven't got a lesson at the minute because it would have been PE. And I'm like, in year 9, like, it was hard enough just to get yourself to PE in school. I never like know what to do instead of PE, like managing that yourself. So I think everyone's doing an amazing job at that anyway. But yeah, just try and use those frees just to sort of get ahead of the game, I guess. And then I think my next tip would sort of be just, have an idea in your mind of like a backup plan, because I know it is very uncertain at the minute. Nobody knows what will happen with grades, predicted grades, teacher assessments, like that is on everyone's mind. Just have a bit of a backup plan. So if you know you want to go to sixth form, you know what you want to study or where you want to study, that's great, and hopefully that all works out. But it's absolutely fine if it doesn't. So when it comes to results day and maybe you don't quite get what you were expecting, or if anything sort of goes a little bit wrong, it's not the end of the world. There's different routes. So if you can't get any sixth form, have a look at college. You can start at maybe a slightly lower level at college and just progress on. It might mean doing an extra year, or it might mean doing a slightly different course. But there's so much help out there to figure out sort of what the right route is for you. So do a little bit digging around that, I think, before it gets to results day, and you'll just have like a pretty good idea of sort of a plan B. But like I say, it's really not the end of the world. I think most people at a point where they get grades that they don't expect, or they don't get an opportunity they thought that they would, and there's always a different way around it. So I would say just sort of prepare yourself for that, especially at the minute, and that kind of takes away the worry of the unknown, because you've got a backup plan anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's my tip. Just to finish off, do you want to go through just the most Google questions then for this week?
Yeah. So the kind of top question, probably quite obviously, was what are my options after year 11? So I feel like we've kind of touched on that during this episode a little bit earlier on. But the kind of second question then was, where can you find your first job without any experience? So maybe kind of if we have any tips around how we found our first jobs, and any kind of way we can point people in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it is hard getting your first job, especially sort of at the minute when everyone's looking for jobs together. I think for me, it was like my sister worked at Subway when she was in school, and then some of her friends still work there, and she just asked them, and I managed to get in that way. But whilst I think it might have been like potentially a week or something before I got that job, I was in town and sports director doing like a recruitment day. Yeah. And it was literally like I had a load of CVs that I was going to go and like hand out to different shops anyway, but you just literally walked in, give them your CV, joined the line, and they interviewed you, and then let you know if you got it or not. Wow. Which now I think about is like really, really random, and I don't think probably happens anymore. But I think either find family or friends who already work in shops or cafes, or it can be anything, like you say, zoo, library, like anything, and just ask them to let you know if there's any jobs that come up. And I think a lot of people do get their jobs now through people they know. And if not, I would always say make some CVs, go and hand them out in town, or around where you live, if there's any little shops or cafes or anything. With that, I would say try and make them personal. If you know where you're going to put them, go and hand them in. Just put on seeking a job as a, I don't know, waitress, and mention the name of the cafe or whatever that you're going to, and it gives it that little bit extra, I think, rather than just because everyone goes out and hands generic CVs, don't they, sort of make it stand out a little bit, hopefully.
I think we'll probably touch on that. I think we're planning on doing at some point a kind of employability type podcast. So we'll probably go into a little bit more detail about how to kind of perfect a CV as a school leaver in that. But yeah, I think that's a really, really good shout, kind of asking family and friends. I would also say, if you can, start with voluntary work. So my first kind of proper job was working in a charity shop that was kind of about a 10-minute walk from my house. I used to go on a Saturday, and I used to kind of go and work on the tills and stuff like that. But that made it so much easier. When I went for my first paid job, I then had some experience to talk about, and though it wasn't paid work, it almost was kind of favourable, because I essentially saying to them, like, look, I used to go and work for free on a Saturday at a charity shop. And I gained customer service skills, kind of punctuality. I had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning to go and open up the shop, and responsibility and things like that. So I think that's really useful. So where you can, maybe see if you can get some experience with any charities. And I would also say, as I mentioned before, like my first paid job was a summer temp job. So don't be afraid to get a job that is just a temporary position. And it's probably better anyway for a lot of students kind of having a job for the summer. So I know that the two places that I applied to, they were offering kind of temporary contracts, and they were doing recruitment days. And I remember going along and I had like a carousel of interviews and got a tour of like the theme park, got a tour of the zoo and stuff like that. And it was really exciting. So I would maybe say, if there's any kind of local attractions as well, maybe try there kind of when it comes up to summertime. And also Christmas is a good one too, getting Christmas temp jobs. I used to work at Fenwick while I was at uni, and I worked there for the whole 3 years, but I got that job because I got a Christmas temp position and then managed to keep it for 3 years. So so I'd probably kind of say that as well. I would also say, just kind of touching again on like the unknown, I would also say, like, as I mentioned about like try not to worry about it, I would also say to like embrace it and embrace kind of the unknown and let it be exciting. And I think that was something that I struggled with quite a lot when I was kind of, like I said, when I left GCSE, and I had the same thing when I left A-level. And I had this like overwhelming fear of the unknown, but I think it's so exciting when you're going into something new. So let yourself be excited, I think, is probably kind of just something else that I wanted to kind of add.
That's us for this week. So just before we go, this week's competition, then we would like to know what you're planning on doing after year 11. So is it college, sixth form, apprenticeship? Let us know what you're planning on doing, and we will be in touch on Friday with the winner. All right, so we'll look forward to hearing your entries this week, and thank you very much for listening.
Bye.